So here we have the Nintendo Switch. This hybrid system boasts a lot of good positive things, and chief among them are the games. Of course, it's always the games. I want to share with you guys my top favorite games that you should have on your Nintendo Switch. RPG edition. My screen is so dirty, I'm probably gonna get some mean looks in the comment that says wipe your damn screen. So without further ado, let's get into the video. And as of this date, the Switch is officially 7 years old, which is in console years really old. And hopefully by the next year I'll be covering the Switch 2 whenever it happens. Alright, without further ado, let's get on to the list, starting with Octopath Traveler 2. Now, this was a tough choice between Octopath Traveler 2 and Octopath Traveler 1, mainly because they're both really good, but I didn't want to cheat on this list, so I picked 2. But keep that in mind because there are many things that I loved about Octopath Traveler 1, so please don't sleep on the first one. But I chose Octopath Traveler 2 because now looking at it, there are so many things in Octopath Traveler 1 that hindered the game experience now looking back at it. And I feel like Octopath Traveler 2 really improved on those things that I didn't like about the first one, especially towards the end, and the characters don't really interact with each other. So it was a pretty hard sell to believe that these people were in a party together all through the whole adventure, and that they really appreciate each other when I didn't really get any dialogue alluding to that. Then comes Octopath Traveler 2, which remedied that a little bit. So you essentially get 8 different stories, which is really cool. Now the gameplay and battle system pretty much stays the same between the first and the second, though the second does have an added effect where you could do like a boost attack, and they really come in handy, might I add, because this game could be somewhat difficult if you're under leveled or if you're trying to take down a boss. Bosses are way more heftier in Octopath Traveler 2, and they require a lot of strategy to them. So you can't just run in and brute force it. Trust me, I know I brute force mostly everything. And another thing about this game, whether you look at this as a bad thing or a good thing is up to you, but this game is really long. There's a ton of content and side content that you want to do, and the final boss, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but you have to be at your peak of power, so you're gonna have to grind a lot. Whether you view this as a bad thing or a good thing is up to you. For me, it was a good thing, though it did overstay its welcome a little bit more towards the end. Oh, and one more thing to note, the music is fire. It is so good. It's just fantastic. But I do recommend this game a lot if you love longer RPGs, turn-based combat, and you love that beautiful HD 2D graphics. Anyways, on to the next game. Now this one I'm probably gonna get a lot of side eyes and what the heck are you saying, Mandy kind of vibes. But the next one on this list is Tokyo Mirage FE Encore. Yeah, I'm going there. Man, I love this underrated idol pop sensation kind of game. It is really good. It's really cheesy, and I get why a lot of people don't like it, but it's just fantastic, especially gameplay wise. But the kicker of this game that makes it really unique is a combination of Fire Emblem and Shin Megami Tensei in an idol universe. Things that probably wouldn't work so well. If I could describe this game in a good way, it would be do not judge a book by its cover. So even though it looks like frilly idol scene kind of vibe, which it is, it was made with a lot of love from the team over at Atlas and Intelligent System. And I don't know, I feel like this game gets a lot of unwarranted hate for no reason. But that's why I'm here to share with you how good this game is. Now the plot revolves around a young group of musicians, talent artists, and idols, and it is set in this alternate version of Tokyo. This game shows a lot about the idol industry, like talent agents, gigs, and music numbers. Now, where does the Shin Megami Tensei or Fire Emblem come in this whole mess? So basically your main characters have a shadow persona with them due to the plot of the story, and those characters look a lot like characters from Fire Emblem. These shadow things are called mirages, hence the name Tokyo Mirage. And there's also Tiki living her best life as a pop sensation. Now as for gameplay, that's where the Shin Megami Tensei side shines. A lot of the moves are named after moves from Shin Megami Tensei games. Players had to strategically choose abilities to exploit enemies' weaknesses and unleash devastating combos. Now these combos are very addicting. I've chained a lot of combos and it's so fun. Hence the name Tokyo Mirage Sessions FE Encore. The Encore part is because it's a remaster from the Wii U game. Also, and this game does a lot of flashy attacks, and I love flashy attacks. Maybe that's why I like the game. I don't know. Now obviously it didn't get big sales for the Wii U because it was on the Wii U, but it also didn't really get much sales for the Switch. So hopefully someone who didn't know this game exists picks it up and plays it and enjoys it. Now, if you didn't enjoy the game, that's perfectly fair. I'm not saying that everybody should love this game. Alrighty, now on to the next pick. Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. Yeah, this one's a little cheap because it has 6 games in one, but since it's in a bundle, it's its own game. Haha, loophole. For me personally, Final Fantasy Remasters breathes in a new life to these old classics. And honestly, I think Square Enix is just like, man, we can't remake every Final Fantasy game. Final Fantasy VII is taking up so much years of our time and resources. So instead, they released a remaster. But not only that, these remasters preserve the original games while enhancing them for modern conveniences. And they also enhanced the visuals. It's not that big, but it updated the pixel art and it looks so good. The characters, environments, and even monsters are crafted with vibrant colors and enhanced detail. And while the fundamental gameplay remains the same, the Pixel Remaster includes enhancements that improve the battles and adds quality of life changes. I'm right now playing Chrono Trigger, and while I am loving that game so much, there are times where I wish it got the Pixel Remaster treatment because some things are just janky due to the time when the game came out, like faster battles, things like that. So whether you're a longtime fan or not, the Pixel Remaster is a great way and the best way to experience the classic Final Fantasy games. That being Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy 2, Final Fantasy 3, Final Fantasy 4, Final Fantasy V, and Final Fantasy VI. And not that long ago, I finished Final Fantasy VI and it was fantastic. And I wouldn't have played the game if they just straight up ported it, because personally, I'm not into retro games because all of the J. So I'm really glad that we got the Pixel Remaster so I could experience Final Fantasy VI. Now, as to the other 5, maybe I'll play it eventually. So I put this on this list because it's a great package, especially if you want to play the older Final Fantasy games. You could buy it digitally or physically, though physically you might have some trouble finding it. The next one on this list is Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Now, this was really hard to choose between the first one, the second one, well, not the second one. The second game is not the best in the series. Now, personally, I chose the first one because I like the story a bit better than the third, but the third is really good, and even the second a little bit. Xenoblade Chronicles, the Definitive Edition, is a remake, and a good one at that. I was so happy that they announced a Definitive Edition because I was about to play the janky one on my 3DS, and then they announced it, and I was just like, yes! Now, funny enough, my intro to the Xenoblade Chronicles games was from Xenoblade Chronicle 2, my least favorite, but it did give me a taste on how the Xenoblade Chronicles universe works, and from then on, I was hooked. So when I got to play the Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, it was so hype. I loved it from beginning to end. What makes the Xenoblade Chronicles games really shine is the breathtaking overworld and the ability to explore literally like anywhere. It's amazing how they did this whole open world thing on the Nintendo Switch. Xenoblade Chronicles boasts one of my favorite protagonists in gaming, Shulk. Shulk is just so prim and proper that it's just very funny at times, especially contrasted with the other party members. And I do love Riki as well. And a lot of people like to say Riki is the weakest or he doesn't know much, but that dude has a wife and a whole bunch of kids. So he has more life experience than probably anyone in that party. And another thing I love is the story and world building. I love the Monado and how it ties into the story and gameplay. And the moment I watched the beginning cutscene, I was intrigued. I had so many questions and my curiosity was piqued. Another thing I really appreciated was that this was a sci-fi RPG, not a fantasy RPG. Now, I'm aware that this game does have fantasy elements, but for me, I love the sci-fi elements way more. So Xenoblade Chronicles the Definitive Edition is an amazing game, and it's honestly one of the best RPG games on the Nintendo Switch to this date. And when you're done with that, head on over to Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and 3. Those are amazing as well. And even though I don't like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 as much as the other two, it's still an amazing game. It's just compared to the other two, it kind of falls flat. I do recommend you go in order from the first, second, and third. So the next one on the list is Persona 5 Royal. Persona 5 is very popular, so if you haven't played it at this point, then you probably should, because it's one of those RPGs that you must play before you die kind of vibe. So I'm not gonna meander too long with Persona 5 Royal. This game has been out for a long time. Persona 5 has been marked as one of the most influential RPGs out there. For good reason. The game is really good. Persona 5 was my intro into the Persona series, so I'll always appreciate it for that. that. Now when I talk about Persona 5, I'm a little burnt out, mainly because I played the original, the Royal, the side game which was Strikers, and Tactica. But I cannot emphasize how good this game is and how it revolutionized JRPG gaming. At the time, something that I found really unique about Persona 5 was its mix of slice of life elements intertwined with the main story. And while the story is not the deepest, it does shine a light on society and how people in power get corrupted. Now when I first played Persona 5, I was hooked non-stop. The game was my favorite of all time for many years. And while I was already into JRPGs at that time, playing Persona 5 really got me more into JRPGs. That's how impactful it was. The gameplay itself has a traditional turn-based combat, but with an extra spin to it so you could go all out on your enemies. You've probably heard how the UI is very stylish, and it is. Now you might be wondering, why is it Persona 5? What's this Royal about? Alright, so basically the Royal is the definitive version of Persona 5. Now I know I'm skipping a lot of aspects of this game, and that's mostly because Persona 5 is a really well-known game, and I don't want this video to be really long. Next on the list is Super Mario RPG. This is one of those oldie but goodie games, and it recently got a remake. Now I do love the Mario RPG series from Paper Mario to Mario & Luigi, and Mario RPG is no exception. Although it does not top the best Mario RPG of all time, that would be for the Thousand Year Door. But Super Mario RPG is still a great game. Now, I never played the original, so I was really excited when they announced a remake because I was just like, yay, I get to play this classic. And even though this is a remake, it stayed really faithful to the original game. Now, this game is perfect for first-timers to RPGs, mainly because it's really short. I know a lot of people dread long RPG hours, and it doesn't have a lot of overwhelming mechanics to it. And not to mention the limit party members you get throughout the game. But that is not to say the party members are lackluster. They are actually really entertaining. However, because this is a Mario RPG, they're not as dynamic. So if you're a fan of Mario and RPGs, put them together and you get Super Mario RPG. I highly recommend. And the next game is Fire Emblem Three Houses. I was debating for a second if I should add Fire Emblem Engage instead, but then I was like, no. The story in Engage is really bad, while the story in Three Houses is just awesome. In Fire Emblem Three Houses, we're introduced to the land of Folan. Long story short, you are a mercenary but then help 3 of the students, and then you get rewarded by becoming a teacher. I did not know that's how teachers were hired. You are given the prestigious role of teaching one of these 3 houses: the Black Eagles, Blue Lion, or the Golden Deer. Now for my playthroughs, I started with the Blue Lions, then the Golden Deer, and then the Black Eagles. Each of the houses have their own leaders, which conveniently, the leaders of the houses are also the royal head of their different region. And with each leader, you get a barrage of different characters that you grow and love throughout the story. Now, each route alone is about 50 hours, especially added that each route is different than the other ones. So if you pick the Black Eagles and experience that story, that's not where the story ends, because in the Blue Lions, it's totally different, and the Golden Deer is totally different. There are a lot of similarities, but overall, it's a different experience. Now, the story I loved so much, from the political intrigue to the more magic style underground villains, and even the church itself. Oh, by the way, you're teaching at a church. I love how vast the story is. It's not a clear black or white situation. There's a lot of gray in between, which I love. You as the player really have to think about what's right and what's wrong. Even the side characters all have their own motives and wants. Apart from a few people, nobody in this game is following the leader just because they're the leader. They usually have a reason behind it. Now, the leaders of these groups are very flawed individual, all 3 of them, which I do love that, because in most Fire Emblem games, it's the basic, you're the lord and you have to gather people to get your kingdom. In Three Houses, there's more depth to it. The game is fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. Now, gameplay wise, it's a strategic RPG, but for me, what made it stand out was the story. Alright, that is it for my list. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then leave a good like, I would appreciate it. If you haven't, please subscribe if you're into videos like this and other RPG content. You can find me on my socials in the description down below. I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of the day, and as always, play a good game. Peace.